Will the honor guard come in? Please welcome our Essex County Sheriff's Office. Please stand and join all and participate. Brigadier General John Driscoll is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. General.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Give them a round of applause, please. Please have a seat. I'm Joe Bevilacqua, the president of the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce. I would not be here at another meeting coordinating this program, but on behalf of all the members of the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce, welcome to what is one of our most important programs of the year, our recognition of veterans. We want to recognize our title sponsor, the Merrimack Valley Credit Union. Thank you so much. We would like to recognize Coastal Windows and Exteriors. I believe Stephanie has an announcement she'd like to make very briefly. Stephanie, give her a round.
Thank you, everyone. So I have a little announcement to make, but I wrote some things down because I don't want to miss some things that are very important that I want to share with you all today. So this Veterans Day, I want to take a moment to express our sincere gratitude to our veterans and their loved ones and say welcome to everyone today and thank you for all who have served and continue to serve today. When our nation needed you most, you stepped up to serve and continue to serve. Each of you has sacrificed so much to defend our freedoms that we as Americans hold so dear. For that we are forever thankful as we commemorate your service today and your service for heroic veterans who are no longer with us. We recommit ourselves to keeping the needs of every veteran and their families at the forefront of our continued mission to serve you all. We work hard to ensure that the military has our support they need with us as our nation struggles to afford housing, heat, food on the table, and a roof over one's head. We announce for the first time today, our fourth Roof for Heroes recipient, veteran Bill Kelly, will receive a free roof process for next year.
Congratulations.
All right, one over and I'll finish and I'll So you protect our country, you protect.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you. So with the forecasted cold winter and excessive snowfall, let's hope it's not too much, and extreme energy hikes, you are protected. You will have a brand new JF roof installed by us for our master lead contractor with a 25-year labor workmanship warranty and a transferable lifetime warranty. Protecting what matters most is our way to say thank you. And we cannot and will not stop. We will be together alongside each of you. All military will continue to receive additional discounts and 0% financing to help you. Each and every person here and in the nation who's answered the call deserves nothing less than our full support. This is what we promise to deliver. Thank you again to our incredible veterans, our active duty and reserve service members, and all the families. Thank you again. We're so grateful. I have a flyer about this on the table on the way out. If you want to learn more about our initiatives, thank you again for everything.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And we also want to say thank you again to Norwood Insurance Agency. Give them a round of applause. Now, Jen Matthews is here. She is going to talk about her Hometown Heroes program. Jen, can we please give her a round of applause?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you for having me this morning. It is a privilege to be here to talk about the Hometown Heroes banner tribute program that we do in Haverhill. I am a proud co-chair of the Hometown Heroes Committee. We are part of the Haverhill Exchange Club. We started this program in 2021, and we wanted to recognize our veterans. The Haverhill Exchange Club has a long tradition of honoring our military service members and our veteran community, and we wanted to think about a way that we could do that was unique and different than what other people had done and other communities had done. My husband is a veteran of the Army, and so for me it was especially important that we do this. And so we'd been looking at other communities and we'd seen banners, but there's no banners that are done in the Merrimack Valley. And so we thought Haverhill was the perfect place to do some memorial banners. And the response to this program was overwhelming. We sold out in the first year, and we've had over 150 banners that honor men and women service members from Haverhill, past and present. It's been an incredible privilege of mine to be able to be in the hearts and the homes of all of these different people, these family members who are honoring their loved ones, to sit at the coffee table, to open the photo albums, and to hear the stories. And we don't often hear the stories. And the other thing is we don't often see the faces. And so what's really remarkable is that this program is a visual reminder of the service and sacrifice that our heroes make and have made to keep our country safe and to keep us safe. So I would just strongly recommend that if you have an opportunity to get to Haverhill, the banners they've now just recently come down, but they're up from Memorial Day until Veterans Day, and then they get reunified with our families. But we start announcing the program and releasing information about January. We're always looking for sponsors. We're always looking for families. You don't have to live in Haverhill. We have lots of families. In fact, we honored 5 different soldiers, Gold Star families from the Lawrence community, including Yohani Rosario, as part of our tribute program. So if you want to honor a loved one, a neighbor, a friend, somebody who has served, we'd be happy to have you as part of our Hometown Heroes program. Thank you so much.
I'm one of the supporters of the Hometown Heroes program, and let me tell you what I've seen. When the banner comes down, they give you the banner back.
Thank you.
And many people have them framed, and they're in their offices, they're in their homes, and it's just a great memento because we don't do enough to recognize and honor our veterans. And the big problem is the veterans never ask for help. You never hear that. That's one reason why we started this program, because veterans were in need of assistance, their families, and yet they don't ask for help. And so we have now created a network of people, as you've heard, whether it be VNOC, whether it be our friends at Coastal, whether it be Jen Matthews, Norwood, all these different people. The credit union is helping, and it's just an opportunity. So we want to say thank you to all what you do. We also want to say thank you to Lawrence Community Access Television. They film these programs for us on a regular basis, and it'll be available on YouTube and all through the net, and we want to say thank you to them. I want to ask you to take a moment of silence for 2 reasons. Cal Williams, who was a Marine veteran, who's one of the co-chairs, along with Sal DeFranco, a Navy SEAL, who could not be here. He's in a program in Florida, swimming with the SEALs to help others. But Cal Williams, who's a Marine veteran, as John knows, his wife just passed away after a lengthy illness, and he's obviously not here today. He wanted to make sure that we expressed his regards and thanks to all the veterans, whether you're in the Navy or not, he said the Army and the Navy and the Air Force, Coast Guard, and all the others all deserve recognition. But please take a moment of silence for Cal Williams' wife and the Americans recently killed overseas. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. The Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce is actively involved in assisting veterans and veterans' needs. You're going to hear in about a couple of weeks about another initiative that the Chamber was actively involved with, working together with one of our veterans agencies. They had asked for something they needed desperately, and I've spoken to the other organization, and that is going to be done, I think today, although we can't announce it officially. We're going to do a publicity program on that, but we want to say thank you to all those who have helped. One of the major initiatives the Chamber undertook was with the sergeant from Lawrence who was killed in Afghanistan at the airport bombing. Her dream was to have a home for her family when she came back. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to come back. But her family was able to purchase a home in Lawrence. It was unfortunately in complete disrepair. The chairman of our board, Mike Sullivan, said we have to help. So the Chamber took it upon themselves to initiate a request for assistance, whether it be carpentry, plumbing, heating, whatever the case may be, supplies, materials, funding. And today, the family is living in the home completely rehabbed at no cost to the family. That was one of the initiatives of the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce. And let me tell you how important it is to recognize veterans. When we stood with the mother at the home, she said, I'm happy, but I have to be sad at the same time. And she looked, literally, I remember this like yesterday, she looked to her left and to her right, and she said, my daughter's not here. So we don't think enough about veterans and the sacrifices they make and the impacts they have. And that's one reason why we want to invite all of you to these programs, so we want to recognize the veterans. So we're going to ask a very, very special guest speaker to speak today. His name is retired Brigadier General John Driscoll. He retired this past June after serving nearly 30 years in the Army. Prior to that, John served as commander of the Joint Task Force Operation Capital Response in Washington, D.C., leading 30,000 men and women to protect the nation's capital. Please welcome our good friend, General John Driscoll.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't realize I was the leadoff hitter, but it's a pleasure to be here. I can't tell you how proud I am to share the stage with really distinguished visitors and people I've met, and Dave is definitely one of them we met before, and Mike and John, especially Joe. But the first thing I also want to thank is Jen Matthews, because I spoke at the Haverhill Exchange in May for the Hometown Heroes, and because I did such a great job, Joe drafted me to be here today. So it's my pleasure. But thank you. My talk today is on the freedom we have, those who fear it, why the current and future veterans and the supporting community, which you all are, will ensure this nation will continue. I know that's a lot to pack in 10 minutes, but hopefully you'll bear with me with that. Now, any Legionnaires, any American Legion folks in here? Okay, so if you, American Legion, I'm a life member along with the VFW, DAB, and all that. We get the Legion magazine, and the part of the Legion magazine, they have parting shots. It's usually the last page of the magazine and has cartoons, jokes, or some witty things. And then the July issue, you know, the question was, why doesn't America have knock-knock jokes? And if you know what a knock-knock joke, knock-knock, who's there, right? Does anybody know that answer? Because freedom reigns. And as hokey as that sounds, it's so true. You know, I know people are like, it's a dad joke, it's a granddad joke, but you know, it really speaks to why we are here today. Freedom reigns in the hearts and minds throughout the world, here in America, but more importantly, throughout the world. people outside of America yearn for our freedom. They are both in fear and awe of it. And what do I mean by fear? You fear our freedom if you're a dictator or authoritarian. You don't trust your people. Think China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. They use technology to silence dissent, to throw people in jail, to do everything they can because they do not treat they don't trust their people. And they may have their armies, but they have a very small Praetorian Guard. If you're familiar with the Roman Empire, Caesar was only guarded by a select few that he could trust. That's what they have, because they fear their people. And those same people who live under the thumb of rulers are in awe of us. They just wish they had part of our freedoms we have in America. They sit there and wish, how could we like America? And that is why they look at us and they wish their friends and family could be here with us. If you find people who don't appreciate America, talk to an immigrant. My mom was an immigrant, and as many people have their forefathers came here before, or most recently, first generation or even recent immigrants. They love America, unfortunately, sometimes more than Americans do. The men and women of our armed forces and their families and friends know that freedom is not free. The freedom we enjoy has been bought and paid for by past generations of veterans who expressed their love for America to serve and die for our American way of life and our values. This patriotism continues today through each new recruit that raises their right hand to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that patriotism is underwritten by a blank check, as we say. If you join the military, anybody who knows this saying, you basically sign a blank check with your life, payable to the American people, because that is what could be expected of you when our nation calls. To each of you in the audience today, that love of country, that have a loved one serving, thank you. And I know we'll do this, but how many people are veterans here? Can you raise your hand? Thank you. From one veteran to another, thank you. Now, how many people here have a loved one, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandparent, or a close friend that served in the military? Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, because everybody who wore a uniform knows this is a team effort. We cannot do what we do without both the love and support of our family and friends, and also of our nation. Coming here this morning, you show that love and respect. You give dignity and respect to the American way of life, and show it to each and every veteran that served. You being here ensures Lady Liberty's flame of freedom will shine brightly throughout the world as a beacon of hope. I ask each of you to continue what you're doing. You may think, well, I'm just here today. It's like, no, you are doing something very important. First of all, you are giving me and everybody here your most precious resource, your time. It's one gift you can give, you can never get back, so I do appreciate it here. But your example here is so important in this day and age. It's important to keep doing what you're doing because American values are being undermined by malcontents. Those are the ones who decry America, the sins of the past, adding the word but to everything American does great. Well, America did this. Yeah, but they also did this, They just cannot understand why we do what we do. If you talk to them, they just say, well, yeah, it's the military. They don't have any other any avenue in life, and they just fail to appreciate that. And that is why it's so important, each of you here being today, go out and spread the good news, not in a religious sense, but with a religious fervor of why America is worth fighting for. The vicious attacks on October 7th became a stark reminder that evil is evil and should be called out. Now those malcontents, whether in ignorance, malign truth, or hate, have turned a blind eye to pure evil in action, and even more disturbing, lack or withheld moral clarity to call out and say what right is right and wrong is wrong. Those people express moral outrage over microaggressions and perceived insults, and went silent or whimpered at best when genuine outrage is warranted as macroaggression played out in reality, the planned targeting, killing of innocent civilians, women, children, and infants. I'm not saying this left or right, whatever side of the aisle, whatever side of the argument, veterans know what right is right. We know when we go as professional soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, we don't target civilians, and it's a very stark reminder that it gives you an idea of how America's values are being skewed right now. The minority outrage is really drowning out what is right in America. So no matter how hotly contested that issue is, it's critical to our success as a nation. We need to be respectful and have civil discourse, an honest back and forth argument to be debated in the arena of ideas. And this right is enshrined in our Constitution. The freedom to express one's thoughts was fought and paid for by those generations for the past 236 years. 1787 when our Constitution was ratified. And continued today by those in the room who have who are currently or have served to ensure all of this right. Now, this right protects the brilliant and the stupid, the informed and uninformed. But again, we believe that, that is our right. When I was down in DC, no matter how crazy it was, we protect our citizens. I'm a firm believer in the First Amendment, as with every veteran. But again, with that, with citizenship comes responsibility. The times we live in are very chaotic and intense, but we've been here before. We will survive, as long as we remember what our founding fathers believed in, that Bill of Rights, support for veterans. And I say this with confidence because our military reflects America and remains an anchor to steady the ship of state in its current rocky voyage. It is grounded in the values, forces interaction to build teams and camaraderie, and draws on customs and traditions and reflect the fabric of our society. Whether he or she, wherever he or she came to serve, they share a common purpose and mission to win our nation's war. Veterans Day is a testament to those that wear or have worn the cloth of our nation and put themselves in harm's way. They remind us all that values are still worth fighting for. Each of you here today do the same in your extension of this patriotic community. Show a dignity and respect for your Constitution, our government, and our fellow citizens, and most importantly, to our veterans. It is by the veteran that our republic realized and lived the self-evident truths proclaimed in our Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. But among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To my fellow veterans, thank you for your service. And to all in the audience, thank you. You and our veterans ensure that America is the home of the brave, is the land of the free, and the home of the brave. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you very much.
John's one of our executive. John, want to present this to you?
No. Well, thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Let me thank the general once again. Give him a round of applause. I want to say thank you to the veteran service officers that are here today, the ones that could not come because they serve the veterans each and every day. Give them a round of applause. And although I was not a veteran, my father was. He fought under General MacArthur, and he was a Purple Heart recipient twice, as well as a Bronze Star. And he never told me about what happened in the war. All he kept saying to me was, I hope you never have to go. That's all he ever told me, and I found out more of his service. But we have in the audience a person, a Marine veteran who received his Purple Heart after 50 years. Give him a round of applause. One of the things that we try to do in the Chamber of Commerce is to recognize that businesses and businessmen and women who are not veterans want to serve veterans, want to assist veterans, and want to make opportunities available to. One of the most important opportunities we can do is simply bring awareness of what our veteran needs are and how we can help. And one of the companies that consistently help us is Unicare. I've taken David Morales out of order because he told me that he is supposed to be out of town at a meeting for 9 o'clock, but he said, veterans are so important to me. We had this discussion about 2 weeks ago, that I'm coming first, so I'm taking him out of order. Please welcome a good friend of veterans, consistently, and a person, let me tell you, General, loves this country, David Morales from Unicare.
I'm leaving at 9 a.m., just to be clear. So first of all, thank you all for your service. Thank you for hosting this event, Joe and Steve. It is an honor to be here. A few things. First, Unicare is a health plan. We support state employees, we support municipal employees, we support state retirees. We're the largest health plan serving state employees. So I'm really honored to support the event. Been supporting the chamber for several years since I took over the role of CEO at Unicare. A couple of things about, on a personal level. General, I really loved your comments today. My family came here in 1986 from Puerto Rico. My wife's family came here when she was 15 years old from Dominican Republic. One thing is clear in my family, thanks to my father who served in the Navy, thanks to my grandfather and my two great uncles who served in the Marines and the Army. They were all in the 65th Infantry except for my father. Most people don't know that the 65th Infantry is the only other segregated unit in the United States military history. Puerto Ricans from 1916 to 1954 served with extreme bravery. There's books written about that unit from Korea and Chosin Reservoir. They were brought in to rescue the Marines out of the reservoir, and 2/3 of them were slaughtered by the communists. And I tell you that because of Americans, all of us. I'm going to charge you with a homework and a challenge. I spoke last week at a community college I won't mention, but I speak often. I wrote a best-selling book called American Familia. There were 100 athletes there, mostly young immigrants, kids of color like me who grew up poor. And I asked who served. None raised their hands. And I talked about the Declaration of Independence, our Bill of Rights, and not many could answer questions. Only one out of the crowd was able to answer questions about the Declaration of Independence or the Bill of Rights. And my challenge and my homework for all of us this morning, including myself, is to speak about the virtues and values of this country. Life, liberty. Liberty is an important value. And most people here don't understand liberty and freedom. You see, freedom means we get to do as we please, but we also have to let others do as they please. But it doesn't mean you have carte blanche to do as you wish against someone else. You can't do this in other countries. My wife can tell you that as an immigrant, and I can tell you that as growing up very poor in Puerto Rico. Other governments don't have the liberty and the freedom we enjoy. So when you come here, get perspective. So my challenge to you is this, and my homework for all of us is this. Speak about our values and explain what life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness means. It doesn't mean you're guaranteed happiness. It means you have the ability to pursue happiness, however you define that. But we don't get to tell other people how to live their lives. We don't let government tell us how to live our lives. We choose as free Americans to build an incredible country that's welcoming, so long as we follow rules and procedures that are established by our founding fathers for this nation. And so I thank veterans daily, especially my father who's still with me, my grandfather and his two brothers who passed. I thank them daily. And I walk very proudly to share this flag with everybody. Thank you, Coastal Windows, for providing that this morning. I'm proud of this flag because it represents my faith, Christian, Judeo-Christian values. It represents my family who came here with nothing to work their way out of poverty. And it represents a grit and determination to serve others the way this country served our family. So veterans, thank you, and thank you all for time.
John, would you make this presentation for David? I think he gets the gold star. I'm not sure.
I think so.
That was outstanding. Outstanding.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Careful.
Oh, awesome.
That was wonderful. What a message.
Thanks. Yes. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And David and I had a 1-hour conversation about America and opportunities. I want to just mention that General, I'm in Washington probably twice a year, and not one cab driver that I get is born in America. They're from every country around the world, and they all say the same thing to me. If it wasn't for this country, my kids, they're telling me their kids, would not be in college today. I would not have been able to find a job to help them, and their kids are going to be doctors and lawyers and teachers and everything imaginable because of America. And unfortunately, too many of our kids here don't recognize it. And David, that's what you and I talked about. One of the ideas that we've tried to do in the Chamber of Commerce is to recognize veteran-owned businesses. So if you're a veteran-owned business, we actually created It was actually Sal DeFranco, the designer of the Navy SEAL, who designed it. A special veteran plaque and decal for your door. So, for example, if you go to some of these veteran-owned businesses, and if you are a veteran-owned business and you want a decal, please let us know. It's a special decal because we want people to recognize this is a veteran-owned business, men or women. We want people to recognize that and give you support because it's so important. That's why we work closely with the SBA on veterans initiatives as well as with the state on veterans initiatives. And we want to recognize veteran-owned businesses because they're so quiet. We have this great company in Havel that you'll hear from in a moment. It's called Havel Steel, and it's called Route 110 Towing. And you would never know how great this company is, how much it's helping others, because the Army veteran is so quiet about it. And that's one thing we see about many of our veterans. They're just they're proud internally, but they need to tell the people that they are veterans, that they've served our country, and we want to serve you by being productive in terms of participating and being supportive of your company. Mike Malvis is a very quiet person. This is I think his first public appearance to speak publicly. You know, I think I had to drag him here. But please welcome a really strong veteran supporter. When we do a number of community initiatives. We did last year, I think, 7 food drives, a diaper drive, we did a clothing drive, we did a book drive, and then we did this thing called Touch a Truck to bring books, asking people to donate books. So unfortunately our kids aren't reading well. And so I asked Mike, I said, Mike, you've got a couple huge trucks, and you've got some very special cars. Would you bring them? Like that, the answer was yes. And it's that way with veterans everywhere. Please welcome my friend and a veteran Army, Michael Malvis.
Good morning. Wow, how do you follow this group, sir? Well, Joe asked me to speak, and I kind of thought about it, and I said, what am I going to come up there and say to these guys?
And women.
And women, sorry. These people, these folks. I didn't really realize what I was going to say, and I thought, I said, people come up to you often and they say, to veterans, thank you for your service, and you think about that. But today, it's a great crisp fall day out there, my weather, perfect, not too hot. And I thought about it and I said, to talk about me a little bit, and somebody came up to me and said, we were talking about the everybody coming into the country, everybody's battling to leave their torn up countries, and they want to come here because of our values. They want what we have, the American dream, right? They want to come here with nothing. They could work hard and prosper, right? So somebody said to me, Mike, that's pretty much your story. You did that. You were the American dream. You've been successful. And I thought back, and I was raised by a single mother. My dad passed when I was young. My mom was a waitress at Howard Johnson's. She raised my young brother and I. We came up. We didn't have much, but we did okay. And I was at Haverhill High. I had gone in and I wasn't doing too well in school, and the Army called out to me. I said, I want to go jump out of planes. I want to be an Army Ranger. That's what I want to do. And my mom wouldn't have it. She wasn't interested. Now, back in those days, this is the early 80s, 1982, 83, if you were 16 years old and you got your mom to sign off you went. So I was done with school. I was a junior. I said, I'm going to Army. Well, after badgering her for quite a while, she agreed. She signed off, and off I went. I went to Fort Benning, and I went to Fort Leonard Wood, and I went all over. I became a combat engineer in the Army. I went in. And, after I was there a few years, my enlistment, we started doing it. Kind of lost its luster. I was a young guy. I thought I had bigger, better things to do in the Army. I did my enlistment, and I got out. Well, we fast forward 25 years. Okay, I deployed for the first time to Afghanistan at 46 years old. And I tell you, it had pretty much everything I had. The Army is a young man's game. Honestly. I'll tell you that. And I joined the Mass Army National Guard. We deployed to Afghanistan in 2013. And I tell you, when we got over there, and as a general can attest, when you're in your Army uniform, you wear the American flag on your right arm, and on your left side, you wear your unit patch. That's how the Army does it. Well, after you're in combat zone for 30 days, you get what they call a combat patch. Whatever the patch is of the unit, whether it's 101st Airborne or... I was with the 101st Engineer Battalion of the 26th Yankee Division, okay? Now, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the 26th Yankee. Maybe you've gone down 128 and saw the signs Yankee Division Highway. You've seen that. This is not one of the most storied units in all the US military. It is the best and the most storied. I'm talking about, we have the only Army unit that has battle streamers from the Battle of Lexington and Concord. The very first thing, okay, in the Revolutionary War. And then it takes off from there. We were at Trenton, in the boats with George Washington. People from Newbury, from Saugus, from this area were in the boats with George Washington crossing the Delaware. Okay? That's what kind of lineage we have. There's no more, and the general can attest to that. Nobody has more than us in all the US military. And I was very proud. When I put that combat patch off in Afghanistan, that YD, that was really a big, very big moment for me. You know, we did that. I ended up leaving the National Guard in 2007. I got out. My business was running while I was gone, one of my companies. Then, you know, we fast forward a little bit, we get into COVID. There were a lot of companies, matter of fact, Haverhill Steel, which is almost a 70-year-old company in Haverhill, scrapyard, steel business and whatnot. People wanted to get out. They wanted to retire and do it. So I said, you know, well, one of my companies is not doing so well. Let's try this. I knew nothing about steel. I knew nothing about scrapyards and junk. But I said, I'll give it a shot. We did that. That was 3 years ago. I run it with my son, Mike Jr. And it's been okay. We prospered. But when somebody comes up to me and says, somebody comes up to me and then they'll end up saying to me, well, you know what, the American dream, and we'd always get on that kick again. And all these people that are rushing to come to America to do what I did, come here with nothing and prosper. And I'll tell you, my reason for being in business and doing everything I did was selfish reasons. I'm honest. I like cool stuff. I like antique cars and things that cost a lot of money. And the only way you can get those is either work or inherit them. And my mom, the waitress, couldn't do that for me. So that's pretty much my story. And the values that I learned in the military and the Army brought me a long way. And I've tried to take people that were with me, guys that deployed with me, have worked for me, and battle buddies and so forth have all come in. And it's really worked out well, but I don't think I could have done what I've done without my values that I learned in the military. I learned a lot of stuff. I met a lot of good people, and as a general might be able to attest that, it's not so much the organization when you leave that you miss, it's the people. It's your friends, and the guys that you've, been in the dirt with. And saying that, if you want to go in business and you're a veteran, you got to want it really bad. Or if you're just in business, you got to want it, you got to eat it, you got to sleep it. Anybody that comes up to me and says, well, I'm going to start a company, but, I'm going to work Monday to Friday, 8 to 3 and this and that, forget it. Forget it. Go work for somebody else. If you're not willing to own it 24/7, eat it and sleep it and make it the only thing in your life, you're not going to be successful. It's just as simple as that. And that's my advice. Everybody comes to me and says, well, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then, and I learned that maybe if you set unreasonable goals for yourself, stuff you can never do, and you say to yourself, you're doing this. It reminds me of a story. When I first started out, and I got out, I wanted to buy an old broken down repair shop in Haverhill that was abandoned for many years. And I kept driving by, and I drove by, and I drove by. And I went to my mom, and I said, I'd really like to buy this garage and, do repairs there and start off right there. No, absolutely not a good idea. Save you money, you're crazy. Don't do it. Well, I did it anyway. I stayed there for 20 years, buying and selling cars. I had an auto repair shop, which I've sold it to some young immigrants that came in, and they've prospered for they've been there, 7, 8 years now. So then after that, I bought another piece of real estate, back to my mom again. My mom, for only being a waitress, she was very wise. She was wise beyond her not having an education. And she said, nope, I don't think that's a good idea. You need to save your money, blah, blah, blah. So we did another deal. 5 or 6 properties later, I had an opportunity to buy a mill complex in Haverhill, mill buildings, kind of not as big as Sal's builds here, but about 100,000 square feet. Years ago, it was Brentwood Furniture in here, I don't know if anyone remembers that. Well, when I was gonna buy the mill, the Brentwood Mills and the buildings, I went to my mom. You know what her answer was. And then she kind of threw me a little curvy. She says, you know, every time you come to me, you tell me you want to do all this stuff and all this money and everything, and I tell you no, and you do it anyway, and you make money, so just do whatever you want. God, do it. You'll be fine. And that's how we're at. And I had spoken to Joe back then and people in the VA, and what my goal was, I have the last mill complex in the whole city of Haverhill that hasn't been turned into condos or apartments. I have the last mills that are still functioning. I have 3 floors of cabinet makers, guys that, you know, some of them are in their 60s and 70s, and there's no young people going in there. They can't get any. One of them hired a new guy, the guy was 70 years old. That was the new guy they just hired. So we need to get more into these trades and get young people, because kids don't want to be apprentices these days. They want to get out of school and make $30 an hour. They don't want to sacrifice anything. And I think the biggest problem is they don't want to sacrifice a single thing. They just want to roll right into success, be the CEO the first day. And it doesn't work. So I've struggled and struggled and struggled with these mills. I wanted to keep them veteran-owned, but we're in different times, you know, and it's just, it's a different thing. But we need to get back in America to the trades, the simple stuff, you know. There's nothing wrong with college, having a degree, and that's all good. But we got to get back to the basics. We got to teach guys doing carpentry and electricity, you know, and plumbing and all that stuff. That's my view on it. But in the time that I've been in business, right now, it's probably the hardest time ever to be in business. It's very hard. Insurance costs and everything, borrowing money and everything that you're trying to do, everything is escalated. Steel prices with COVID was so crazy through the roof. We started doing something with the steel business people didn't do down there in 70 years. If you need to come in, we sell most sheets of steel come in 10-foot sheets, 4x10. We put in a shear and we'll sell half a sheets because somebody couldn't buy a whole sheet because they couldn't afford it. It was so expensive they couldn't do their project. So we started selling half a sheets, which was never done in 70 years because the prices were so out of the stratosphere. People they just couldn't do it. So we had to try and we adapted to the times with a lot of stuff. But that's, you know, those are the times we live in. And I found out we're in pretty good shape now. We're coming back. It seems like inflation's kind of let off a little bit. You know, we'll just have to see what the future holds. But I'm going to leave you with this final note. Yeah, if you want to go in business, and I don't care who you are, you got to go all in. You know, if you're not prepared to go all in 110%, full steam ahead, and run over the competition or do whatever you're doing, you know, and I have these meetings with my boys all the time. They're not the biggest go-getters. But I have to ride them all the time and say, you know, we got to do a little bit more. I want a little bit more out of you guys, you know. But anybody that wants to do it, I say this. If you want to take a shot and go in business, do it. Because what's the worst thing that's going to happen to you? You're going to have to go back and get a job. Right? So let's do it. Thank you, everyone, for inviting me to
This is for Michael.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Stay on.
Yes, sir. Yes, stay on. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Correct, sir.
Thank you, Michael. Let me tell you about 2 things I want to follow up what Michael just said. First of all, Michael, the Chamber will hold a program. We're working right now with the 2 technical high schools on vocational education. We're going to be working on that initiative because people do need to know how to become active in the trades. And one thing that you probably do not know, everyone in the audience, the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce actually has a home building program. We work in conjunction with the Gray Lawrence Technical High School. It's called the Gray Lawrence Revolving Loan Fund. And for the last 20 years or so, we have built a house nearly every year that's sold on the open market. It's done in conjunction with the kids at Gray Lawrence Technical High School. Some of those have actually been affordable in other communities as well, but it's part of our initiative to help trades go forward in this initiative. So we take exactly to heart what you say. And I want to say Michael is very modest about his companies, but he is very, very attuned to, I think what's so important, and that is the ideals and the drive and the determination of the veterans. So we want to say thank you once again, Mike. One of the things the chamber has done is when Sergeant was killed in Afghanistan, we wanted to create an award that would be fitting memorial to her memory. I never met her, most of us never met her, but she represented the ideal of America. So we created what was called the U.S. Marine Corps Sergeant Johanny Rosario Pachado Memorial Award. The first recipient was Bob Brown from Broker Oil. Now, this is not an oil truck that goes from like building to building. You have to see this. It is like a U.S. Navy base when you go see his property. And it shows you what veterans do when they create businesses. Am I right, Michael? You're a neighbor to him.
My neighbor.
He is the company that the U.S. government calls when there's an emergency anywhere in the country. He brings the emergency fuel to supply generators and fueling around the country. Former Navy Seabee, he was the first recipient. The second recipient was Sal DeFranco. Sal was a Navy SEAL. He will not tell me much of what he did, but if you know what a SEAL is, you know that it was not good in terms of his own personal protection. The only thing he really told me about his service is that we were told to do something, we had to do it. There was no turning back. He loves his country. He loves veterans. He started several businesses, and as I mentioned, he is he's retired as a board member, but he's a co-chair with John and Cal Williams on the Veterans Service Committee here. And his wife, Dana, they just had a baby, and his wife, Dana, is a new board member, and she is also the co-chair of our Women's Business Series. In fact, at the last couple of weeks ago, we had our Women's Business Conference, and she actually brought the baby. The baby was about 3 months old, and I actually gave the baby a plaque, an appreciation. But it's an example, again, of veteran families, how they continue on, and again, what they do. So there are so many worthy veterans, it's very difficult to find the next recipient. So we look for someone that's successful in business because we think veterans have a particular acumen for business, and we want them to be examples of others who can go forward and start a business. And one thing that the employers tell us is that when a veteran is hired, we know they're going to show up for work and they're going to do the very, very best. At the same time, we want a veteran that is actively involved in new initiatives, in helping others, in community service. Because obviously one thing that you learn protecting all of us is helping one another. The other thing that we wanted was someone that would be recognized in the community as someone that has done good. Someone doesn't mean that they have to give a lot of money away or anything like that, but do they go out and make a difference in others' lives? And what does it mean to be a veteran to them? Do they talk about it at all? You know, do they promote being a veteran? Do they promote America? Do they promote all that's good about this country? The award is presented this year to John Howard, the President and CEO of Merrimack County Credit Union. Okay, are you all set? One more? Oh. Oh my God. Oh. I don't know which way to look. Okay? Okay. Please welcome John Howard.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. This is such an honor to receive Sergeant Johanny Rosario Pachado Award. When I first received the word a couple weeks ago that this was happening and I was being recognized as such, something happened with me, and it stayed with me for a series of days. Johanny, in a sense, came and visited me, and I could not get her out of my head. I thought about her a lot, and I started researching her, because as Joe said, I also never met her. But I've definitely met a lot of folks with a similar story or a story where they haven't given their all like Johanny did in giving and helping people like she was that day when that terrible day happened. And so as our human brain works, it always happens this way. One thought leads to another, which leads to another. And, my brain did the same thing. And as I was thinking about Johanny over several days and reading about her and learning more, I started thinking about other people that were impacted by that day. And not only the U.S. servicemen, but the 172 Afghanis that were impacted that day. So many people were impacted. And then my brain just naturally went to another thought, which was thinking about all the military women and men who have been injured or given their all in the line of our service, whether it's the offense or defense of our great nation here. So then my brain started to get a little bit more focused, and I started thinking about, and I'm not sure why my brain went here, but it did. I started thinking about the 22 veterans a day that leave this world at their own hand. And I started wondering why, and I started wondering who those folks were, and what was the makeup. When you think about making decisions, solving problems, in the business world especially, we very much use logic and facts, or at least we try to. We try to keep emotions out of our decisions, because usually emotional decisions are bad decisions. There's unintended consequences. So, we usually define the problem, we root cause it, and then we try to solve that root cause, because it's a domino effect. Once you solve the root cause, it'll solve the problem eventually. There may be other root causes you need to solve as well, but once you eradicate them, your problem's solved. So before I go further into this, I would just like to say I'm going to be speaking a little bit about veteran suicide and suicide in general, some of the statistics around it. And some of us have been personally and directly impacted by this topic, and it may be a little painful. So you won't insult me whatsoever if right now is a good time for a cup of fresh coffee or a fresh breath of air. So on any given day, there's about 1% of us that are active duty, 1% of us Americans that are active duty military. About 5% of us are veterans. So about 95% of us are not veterans, not 5% of us are. So when I started thinking about that 22, and my brain usually works to whittle it down to the point that you got to focus on, and then focus on that point, you're going to solve the problem. I started naturally just going down that path, and I started wondering, who are these 22 people? And is that 22 people a large number? Is it a small number? So I started researching it, and in 1999, 80 people per day took this action against themselves. 20 of them were veterans. So 25% in 1999, not 5% like you would think, 25%, a quarter of all people that took this action were veterans. In 2010, that number went up to 105 people, Americans, veteran or not veteran, that took this action against themselves. And that number for veterans went up to 22, which was 21% of the total population that was taking this action were veterans. Still not even close to 5%, such a higher number. Why would that be? And then in 2019, I kept it before COVID, because COVID really spiked numbers because of the impact of COVID. But in 2019, 130 people per day, Americans per day, took this action against themselves. And still 22 veterans, so 17%, still a very large number. So this raises a few questions that your brain would naturally start to go down, the path that would go down, which is one, why is the number increasing for us as Americans? That's something that, is an issue that needs to be addressed and root caused and try to identify, which I know is. And then also the veterans staying flat, why would that be? And then also why still, ballpark 20% of the people taking action against themselves like this are a population of only 5% of what they should be, the whys. So as I started digging into it, first thought was age. I said, okay, well, how old are these people? Who are these people? So really interesting here, for non-veterans, now it's not the total number, now it's non-veterans compared to veterans. Non-veterans, if you look at the non-veterans who take this action against themselves, 44%, almost half of them, are under the age of 40. On veterans, now I'm going to take the other thing, because when you get to 40 to 60, the number's kind of normalized. But then when you get to the other side, 60 years and over, only 15% of the non-veterans that take this action against themselves are over 60 years old. Half, 50% of the veterans who take this action against themselves are over 60 years old. So there's definitely an age situation here taking place for the 22. So 11 out of the 22 people are over 60 years old. So that helps us as a problem-solving path to start to pinpoint our focus and pinpoint ourselves as to where we would go to try to solve for this. Then I thought gender. Is it the women? Is it the men? Which one of us are doing it? And why would that even have an impact? As it turns out, I was shocked to find that it does. Men are 4 times more likely to take this action against themselves than women. Of total people, the total population that are committing suicide, 70% are white men. So not only are men 4 times more likely, white men are predominantly more likely to do this. So once again, it pinpoints us, and which is really interesting because white men only make up 30% of our population. So that's another very disparate number, similar to the 22 people a day, the 5% versus ballpark 20%. So it helps to pinpoint as to why this is happening. Age, there is a factor. Why, I don't know the answer. I know there's folks in services that look at this every day. The general and I were speaking about this earlier. And gender, apparently there is an issue there. So what is that issue that causes that? There might be a correlation here with the military, because men make up 83% of the military, females make up 17%. But with the men, white men specifically, 60% of the military are white men. So maybe that skews the number a little bit there, but 40% are not. So what's the number there? Where does that point us towards when we try to identify the root cause? Where do these people live? What's happening? Is there anything in a geographic sense that promotes or doesn't promote the help assistance for this? And there wasn't a lot of disparity, but there was, I'll generalize the point here, is that in the Northeast or east of the Mississippi, as I took every single state, and I took the population of the state, and I took every single state, and I in an Excel spreadsheet, I just inputted all the veterans in the state. And then I inputted the people who took this action against themselves, veteran or not veteran, and I put that into the spreadsheet, and I started just analyzing it, trying to identify where's this path, where's the needle in the haystack. There wasn't necessarily one in the geography side, but what did pop out in the geography side, east of the Mississippi, or specifically in the Northeast even more so, for the percentage of population. So for example, in the Northeast, 14% of us Americans live in the Northeast, which is Pennsylvania North is what I included there. But just a little less, 12% of the folks who take this action against themselves live in that geographic area, so a little bit less. But when you went to the Midwest, 22% of our American population lives in the Midwest, but a little more than that, 14% of the people who take this action against themselves live in the Midwest, so a little more. So it may be that there's more services available to assist folks in the Northeast or the east of the Mississippi. It might be a cultural thing. The folks in the Midwest, like, I don't need any help, similar to what Joe described. Veterans don't ask for help. That is a very common thing, and that's not a smart thing. It's not a good thing. It's a thing that we carry in us, but it's not a healthy thing. It's not something that there really is a good reason we should be doing it. Stressors, they're kind of a combination of things that we would naturally think. Unemployment, legal issues, financial issues, relationship issues. I have the percentages here. Relationship issues are 56% of the reason why people take this action in total, not just veterans, but total. And there's some duplication here. You get unemployed, you're going to have financial issues. You have financial issues, it's naturally going to cause relationship issues. So there's some crossover here in the numbers. But it helps to pinpoint as where we go. One thing did stand out, which was for the folks, veterans specifically, I'm sure it's the same for non-veterans as well. Just common sense would lead you to believe that. But this was specifically for veterans. The research I did here that told me the story. Veterans who seek help and get help are far more reduced. There is a number, but there's multiple numbers and multiple analyses, and the variation in the numbers were so huge, 47% reduction, 72% reduction. Those are two of the numbers I said, okay, that's so disparate. I'm not going to say it even though I just did. But the point with that is, for the folks who seek help and get help, there is a reduction. So that is a key point here, that when we try to find a path of how we can help, that would be a point. So in closing, I just want to say, kind of bringing this together, Joe, for every cause, there's an effect. For every action, a reaction. It happens throughout our lives since we're children, and it'll happen until we're no longer here. Because you gave me this honor, I'm a very deeply faithful person, and I do believe Johanny visited me. She just, whatever that means to anybody, myself, whatever it means to me, I don't mean it in any grandeur way. I do believe, she knows who is the recipient of her name. And And because of that, there comes a responsibility with this honor. And with her entering my thought process for such a series of days and triggering that series of thoughts to bring me to this path unintentionally, I didn't come to this intentionally, it's just happened as I was just thinking about Johanny, that I'm now in it. And personally, from a business skills perspective, I'm going to utilize my business skills to join the folks that are in this fight, and why we're talking, not just in a helping way, but to root cause it. One of the things that we do as business people, we root cause very effectively, and we solve problems very effectively. So it's my hope and aspirations, because of this honor that you've given to me, that I'm going to be able to help folks to figure out how do we get that number from 22 to 21. That's 365 people a year, 3,650 people in 10 years. That's impactful to people's lives. How do we get that number from 21 to 20? How do we get that 20 to 19, et cetera? There's no reason why it should be 5%, 20% when the population of this group is 5%. So thank you for the honor, and thank you for the path that you've set me on to help in this manner.
Let me say, when the Chamber was creating the Veterans Assistance Program, I don't know if you ever watched Fox News, but Colonel David Hunt, who was the Fox National Military Advisor, was our speaker. And one of the things he talked about was, in fact, veteran suicide. In fact, I think, if I remember correctly, this was a couple of years ago, I think he was wearing a black ring on his trigger finger. And he said that's the symbol of veteran suicide assistance. And Colonel Hunt is he did some tough stuff. But he was so concerned about veterans. And we had him speak twice. But John, you're absolutely right. And that's one thing. I want to say VNOC, Bill Kelly, does a great deal of assistance helping veterans. And I want to commend them because they're helping veterans each and every day. Veterans that need assistance, homelessness, mental health issues, all that type of thing. So John, you're right on track. And I want to tell you one thing though about John Howard. When I called him to tell him, because I want to make sure he was here, that's why the only reason why I called him to tell him he was going to get the award, he said to me, no. He said, I don't deserve it. There are so many other veterans that are worthy. And Glenn, you know this is true of John. And I said, John, I want to tell you one thing. Now, John's a member of my executive committee, so he's like my boss, along with the others. I said, John, I want to tell you one thing. There's no saying no in this. You are the recipient. And he was so appreciative. But we want to say thank you to John. And give him another round. As we close the program, I just want you to know that the veterans that speak today are representative of all of you. It's indicative of the service that you have for our country, the love you have for our country and for all of us, and that we owe you a tremendous debt of gratitude for helping us, for keeping us safe, and to be able to do the things that we all do. Everyone here is doing something different because, as everyone spoke about, you have the ability to do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, as long as you don't hurt anyone. And that's what the veterans do. And the veterans in business, we want to say thank you and commend you, and we encourage you to assist others, and that's what the Chamber does. We do free business counseling with several quasi-public agencies that provide veterans assistance. For the people that serve, we can't thank you enough. And for the families of veterans, please, if you have assistance needs, please don't hesitate to call us because we have so many great connections that we can help you with. And once again, I want to say thank you to the veterans that are here and for those that help veterans. And David, you and I had a great discussion about America and the veterans that serve. Michael, you're an inspiration for those. Very modest. This is probably the first time you spoke formally. Second time, all right. But one thing he said that was very important is, his son is working in the business. One thing the Chamber's created is what's called our Next Generation Leaders Program to bring the young generation along because they're going to be running the businesses. And they need to have the direction and the commitment and the drive that you veterans have, both men and women. In general, I just can't say enough. I want to say thank you. This is the second time I've heard you speak. We're very, very honored that you came. And it seems to me that we are very, very fortunate when we think about the veterans that have worked with you. And John, as a Marine Corps veteran, Cal called me while you were speaking, but I obviously couldn't take the call. And Cal loves the Marine Corps. I always put him and sell DeFranco, the Navy SEAL, against someone else, you know, because it's, you know, there's that little rivalry among the branch of the military. But there's one thing in common with all of your branches, with all the men and women who served, and that is defending America and the people that live in here. And there's no more I can say but say thank you. Have a great day, everyone.